It cracks me up, Brian, how many people think Panama is a song about Panama. It's not. So I'm a true Van Halen aficionado, and it is a sign of, it's a song about a car, a Lamborghini called the Panama Express. Anyways, welcome. Long day's journey into night. I just finished up a Series 66 class and barely made it to our live stream. We are going to take care of some housekeeping, and then we'll help you with any content questions you may have about the exam you're taking. Tell us where you're joining us from, what series exam. We have people sometimes join us as far away as India. We have some people in Africa, Europe, New York. We always have we don't always have. Brian does have a life outside of our Tuesday live stream. So, some days we lose them. If it's like the Kraken are playing or the Seahawks or the Mariners, we might lose them. But we have our very special guest, Brian Lee, the test geek himself in living form. So he will help us with content questions. And he also is kind enough to give our viewers a discount. We'll talk about that. Yeah, if you are looking for a free supplement, a very popular price point, I would recommend my YouTube channel. There's close to 3,000 videos. I've organized the channel based on the various series exams. If you're taking the 66, for example, Brian and I did a Series 66 podcast where we give you a beautiful overview of what that looks like, kind of like a nice recon of the terroir, what it looks like. I like it to put a dent in the book or consolidate the book. Who knows? Don't tell me you don't read the book, but maybe you do that instead of reading the book. And then we have a playlist of lectures. We have a playlist of explications. We have a playlist of practice tests. So if you're looking for a particular topic, please, please, please use the channel search bar. Brian and I are going to get asked questions this evening. It's okay. We're going to answer them. But we've answered them many times, and they live forever in video form. So you could simply put in to the channel search bar adoption or entanglement or accrued interest or margin or quadro, and all those videos will magically appear. Now, if you're looking for a supplement to your paid study materials, you can use my Guru 15 discount code. Now, be careful of false prophets. There are people that are offering Kaplan discount codes that belong to employers who these people don't work for. They're the same as mine, but the biggest difference is my discount code not only gets you a reduced price at Kaplan and a reduced price with my friend Brian, it also comes with access or unlocks access to my free tutoring office hour. That's a $425 value because that's what I charge for tutoring. It's also a way for me to provide access to people who may not have that kind of money, right? So just remember when you're hearing about discount codes, that's to do it. Now, Brian, I think, is one of the best paid supplements. The Kaplan Q Bank and Brian's Test Geek gift, I think, are the best paid supplements. Brian is a master distiller. He's very good at making distillation of your paid study materials. It may look like this. And then, he's got his videos and his PDFs and helps you have a bridge between that and what's actually testable. All in on Brian with the 20% discount code. I think it's like a little over $100. I think it's worth it. Videos. I usually tell people to buy your paid supplement about 7-10 days out just to consolidate what they've done in terms of the work they've done in their primary study materials. Both Brian and I will let you know, we are not primary study materials. We're supplements. I'm a free supplement. Brian offers a paid supplement. So how often we get asked, can I just buy Brian's videos and pass the test? No, right? That's not what it's about. So, but all in is about 100. The Kaplan Q Banks are about $50-$60 with my discount code. You're not alone. I just talking to a young lady this evening, Brian, and I said, you're not alone. And boy, if you're struggling, make sure you find a test-taking tribe. And we have a test-taking tribe called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks on Facebook, coming up on 5,000 members. It is the most active Facebook group for FINRA and NASAA exams. Baby Brokers is a term of endearment for, rookies in the securities industry. And a hat trick is 3 successes in a limited time frame. Think SIE 663 or SIE 766. You get the idea. join us over there. Sometimes, Brian, people will be talking about your content. I always tell people in our communities, our tribes, just reach out to Brian. You don't have to. I wonder if Brian does this, meant that, or meant that. I say, hey, just send him an email or ring him up. Nothing worse, Brian, than two confused people confusing themselves further rather than just reaching out
right to the source.
We have Reddit communities. We have a subreddit for the Series 6. We have a subreddit for the SIE and Series 7, our Series 7. We have a subreddit for 63, 65, and 66, our Series 66. And we have a subreddit for 9s, 10s, and 24s. So we have lots of test-taking tribes, communities that you can join. If you win our coaching call tonight, you do not win a tutoring session, a date and time of your choice. What you win is access to the coaching call. And what you would do is go to deantenneytutoring.setthemore.com. I think I have it here somewhere. Find the coaching call tab, and you will find, how to get your coaching call. It sends you a Zoom link, and I show up, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. We also have a free office hours for paid students. You would also find a link there. If you use Brian's discount code, Guru20, use Kaplan, Guru15. You join me for class today or a tutoring session, that's available. That also has a tab that you can find there. Okay, if you have a question tonight, it's helpful for Brian and I if you tell us what exam you're taking, followed by your question. Sometimes we can figure it out, but the way they test on different things is different in terms of depth or how shallow or how deep. So that would be helpful. Not necessary, but helpful. Okay, I think we're ready to see what we got going on in the comments. Let me get rid of that banner. Boom, boom, boom. We'll leave that one. Which is the other one I got going? There we go. Comments. Series 65, Miami, Florida. All right, Miami. I was reading, Jackie, that, boy, the mayor of New York is kind of doing a retrograde movement on his comments about billionaires in New York. He had met with Jamie Dimon the other day. He met with David Solomon of Goldman Sachs the other day. He had, it was kind of poking a guy named Ken Griffin. And Ken Griffin said, I don't know if you know how many of our boys at Citadel live and work and spend lots of money in New York. And I'm building a new building for them. And, you sound a little bit like Chicago. And you know what I decided to do? Because of these quality issues, I moved most of my Chicago team to Miami, Florida. Maybe I should increase my operations in Florida. Mondani has said these people will not move out of New York City, and I am not so sure, Brian. I might say time to go. So welcome. I know my laundry list of exempt SEC and transaction, but I get confused when knowing where the agent must register. I would say, and I'll leave it Brian. Brian's really good at this particular thing. He's got a question that everybody takes exception to. And what they're doing is answering the question Brian didn't ask. Most times the agent must be registered regardless of what we're doing, right? So I would have a default of the agent must be registered. But Brian, that question that you have, and I get it all the time where people take exception because it's an exempt transaction. I go, well, Brian didn't ask you that. He didn't ask you about whether the security of the transaction was exempt. He asked you, did the agent need to be registered? And the answer is yes. Your thoughts on this one, Brian?
Absolutely. I get this question a lot as well. The exemptions you're referring to are for securities. The exempt securities or exempt transactions allows us to sell these securities unregistered. It has nothing to do with the agent.
Yeah.
If you saw my list of, definitions of persons and registration, under the, I don't have to register is not a government bond or a municipal bond.
I like that.
Just like Dean said, it doesn't matter what type of securities we sell. It doesn't matter what type of transaction it is. These exemptions only refer to the securities, not
answer the question you're being asked. People bring extra stuff into questions. But Brian has made a continuing offer for what he calls his cheat sheet. I love his cheat sheet. I use it when tutoring, and he has these boxes he's referring to where, you go. I kind of think of it as a kind of a flow chart. You can kind of see where the broker dealer is, where the investment advisor is. If you'd like to take him up on that, just send him an email at Brian@testgeekexamprep.com. And is the offer still good, Brian?
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you're watching this on repeat 10 years from today, Brian and I may not be around. I'm joking. But it might sunset at some point. So the offer may not be valid forever.
It's on my daily morning list is to send out all those.
Oh, right. You're still getting a lot of traction. Yeah. And what a nice guy, because I might have got a lot of those emails and said, okay, that's it. I got to stop offering this thing. All right, let's see where we're at. That was, by the way, and I don't know if it gives you any solace, but I'm not as worried when people are confused in ways I always see people get confused. I'm a little more worried, Brian, when somebody's confused in some way I've never seen somebody confused before.
That's right.
That's when I go, oh my God, what are we going to do for this person? Let's see, Boston. All right. Cole, I taught a lot of classes for a division of Fidelity. Were flying me back and forth to Boston. And as much as I love my Fidelity friends, I said, listen, I am not a solution to your problem. You need to hire a corporate trainer or hire Kaplan or Pass Perfect because, as much as I love Boston, I'm a San Francisco guy.
Interesting, Brady from Boston. I bet you he doesn't have to.
I didn't even think of that.
Don't have to buy your own drinks much, do you?
Well, maybe he's part of the royal family. Scored 67 midterm after a month of prep. I'm not worried about a 67 with a month of prep, despite 75. Well, because now you're getting a cumulative test on lots of things, despite the midterms. I wouldn't beat yourself up on this. Using in-depth notes, Dean's videos, flashcards, overstudying or missing something. No, I think what I would want to know is not so much a month of prep. When is your test, right? Because that is the issue. I would like you to be in the mid-70s. But even if I was betting on you, if you told me you had a 67, that was your final score and you were testing later this week, I would still think you would pass if you didn't get it past. It's not where I want you to be. I want you to have margin of safety. But I think you're in good shape. So if you want to, tell us in the chat. Do you continue on? Yes, you continue on. What kind of question is that? When you are walking through the shadow of death, you keep walking, right? The way you get out of this is to continue on, right? So next steps you should take. Well, I can't answer that unless I know when the test date is. And what I maybe if you said, for example, let me give you an example. I told you I would make you, if I were your corporate trainer and you told me a 67 and you want to move your date, I would say no. I'd say, listen, I don't know what to tell you, my friend Louisville, but you're going in the cave to slay the dragon. And 67 is our last mark. The variance, depending on your test prep vendor, is in your favor. So that's not as far away from a pass as you think, because you're going to pick up, 5 to 12 would be my guess on the variance, depending on the test prep vendor. If you're using Kaplan, STC, Pass Perfect, Knopman Marks, the usual suspects, that's a higher score than it looks like. But if it's you tell me it's like 2 weeks from now, I might say, well, maybe we just need to step away for a day. Go to the park, go fishing, do whatever, and refresh and reset and come back to it. Your thoughts on this one, Brian?
Yeah, I'm looking for a final exam, a practice.
Yeah, there you go.
I hear midterms. I want to see a practice final. However, 78 to 85, I don't see why you're having any problem.
Yeah, I would be happy. If I told you I was a corporate trainer, I'd be happy with that score. I wouldn't give you grief. I wouldn't call you and say, Remember, as I always say, it's pass, fail. It's not A, B, C, D, right? So 67, I think there's a lot of people, Brian, who are used to school. I don't know. Is that a D?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I think it's a D. Who cares? It's in our business, it's almost an A because it's just pass, fail. I only listened to your podcast and practice tests and read the book. Well, there you go. Not recommended. Not recommended, but hey, if it worked, it worked. Oh, by the way, does this count, Brian? Does that count as a victory? Do I get the smoke or do I have to wait for
Absolutely. Why not?
I keep thinking I may not be able to smoke my cigar and, have my victory spirit. Tonight's cigar is a My Father La Abulencia. My father makes some really wonderful cigars. And so we'll cut our victory cigar. Boom. And our victory spirit for tonight is Johnny Walker Blue. That's a very nice, fine scotch. And boom, 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 get that going. Particularly since it's a long day's journey into night.
Remind me, I had a bottle of blue.
Uh-huh.
The Johnny Walker tends to be blended, is it not?
Yeah, this is a blended scotch. It's not a
It's
single.
not single malt.
It is. Oh God, I just made a mess.
But I believe the blue has got to be what, 18 years old or?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely aged quite a bit.
Yeah,
I don't think it has, a lot of the scotches avoid age disclosure because then they got to keep to it, right? So some of them tell you it's aged, some of you don't. This depends on your vendor, but it is one of the finest scotches. I forget sometimes I'm not drinking at home. And Brian and I went into a place and had dinner and had a Johnny Walker Blue, $170. This would be a $300 pour. You know? Crazy. Oh, we gotta light the cigar. You have to come out, Brian. I got a lot of personal property, on my balance sheet, a lot of cigars. And I joke, every time I smoke one of these, I'm a little bit poor, right? Because now this asset.
Your net worth goes down. Yeah.
66 New York City. Pass the SIE with your help. All right. Woohoo. Another testing. I guess we could have been basically golf going here, right? Love it. I love all the people's pictures too. Look how spirit filled her smile is. I love that. I've always worried, Brian, that if I had a spirit-filled smile like that as my avatar, I think that's what you call those pictures, then I would feel bad if I had a bad day because everybody would expect me to always be, up. My first attempt of the 7, I got a 68, scoring 63 to 73 in a reinforcement program through Past Perfect. I've never heard of that before, reinforcement program. I'm now scoring between 70 and 84. Well, that's good news. Last 4, 78, 84, 84, 82. I like your chances. Absolutely. Love your chances, Cole. I really think it looks like what they're calling reinforcement. I think Brian and I would refer to as remediation. Right. And it looks like you have done the remediation and it has popped your scores. The work looks like it's paying dividends. So
that's what it is.
If I were a betting person, I would bet on the pass. Maybe we should have like a hookup from our live stream, Brian. To Kalshi, is it Kalshi that does those bets? Whether we could like put Cole up there and say, what's the bet in the prediction market on Cole?
One thing I would suggest to Cole, these are all Past Perfect scores, which are great. They're very good. Go on Dean's website. He goes through, he reviews a lot of different Series 7 exams. Of course, I have a Series 7 just for some confirmation and to change up the work.
I like that. Get some more data. Brian, by the way, gave me permission. His Test Geek Series 7 practice test is up there too. So you can hit pause, try and answer it, hit play. And then, as I said, if you have an issue, I used to, if you had an issue with one of Brian's practice questions, I used to answer, but now I just tell you, talk to Brian. It's his question. He can defend it. And
speaking of which, I did find an error in one of my finals.
Oh, really? What was it? Are you going to tell us?
I don't want to get into that.
Okay. We'll get it back.
It was an oversight. It should have been changed.
All right.
We'll
take care of it backstage. Yeah. The alphabet soup with states in the question. Well, what I like to do, Jackie, is I like to just say it's my state. So I'm coming in from Arizona. So I just get rid of the state A, B, C thing. And I just start putting states there. So state A, I just say Arizona. State B, I say Nevada. State C, I say California. Sometimes you can take care of it that way. The other thing is I do the same as it relates to an agent. I say, oh, that's me. Investment advisor rep, that's me. Oh, broker dealer, it's my firm. Investment advisor, that is my firm. Another area, Jackie, where that cheat sheet that Brian has is helpful, right? To kind of identify, who is the cast member. I joke, Jackie, they're securities professionals. There's 4 securities professionals: broker dealers, investment advisors, agent of broker dealers, and investment advisor reps. Those are securities professionals. The state administrator is a regulator, but in terms of that cast of characters, that's important, right? And the states, the thing that's important about the states is the administrator. I always joke that's important because it's called jurisdiction, right? There's always a sign that tells you you're leaving state A and entering state B because the regulatory blue sky laws have changed, right? When Brian comes to Nevada, for example, is open carry. So if Brian wanted to, he could put a firearm on his belt and off he goes. He does that in California. He used to be in some serious trouble. Brian, when I moved to Nevada, I said, Jackie, I was in trouble because I asked him when the last call was. They go, what do you mean last call? I go, well, what time are you turning off the lights and kicking me out of here? And they go, no, we're not. I go, oh my God, I got to kick myself out of here? I'm used to California. Hey, last call, 1 o'clock, time to go home, right? I have a 3-day Kaplan review next week, Tuesday through Thursday. Zachary, what exam? I'm doing the Kaplan hires Guru Exam Prep LLC to deliver classes for them. And Guru Exam Prep is me. And so, I'm teaching a 3-day 66. I don't know what 3-day class you're doing with Kaplan, but I think Kaplan does a fine job. Those courses are great to consolidate information, confirm information. I know some people are using that to kick off their study effort, but some people are joining me these 3 days to kind of consolidate, and they're going to test Friday or Monday. But say hi to your instructor. I'm sure they are familiar with Dean Tenney, aka the Series 7 Guru. Almost all Kaplan instructors are, good or bad. I mean, I think most of them think well of me, but who knows, Brian? We might have some haters we left behind.
I'm sure there's some.
Night. I like that, Zachary. I think that's plenty of time. What's today? Is it that 10 days out? I think Zachary was telling us. I asked him when was his test. I think. I apologize when I get people confused. Yeah. But 10 days. Where are you at? If you didn't already tell us, where's your scores? At this point, you should be doing practice exams. About 7-10 days out is when we start taking intellectual inventories on all the information to see where you're at. Do you see where he talked to us previously, Brian?
No, he's not. Nope.
Maybe he's just responding to what exam are you taking and when. Philadelphia, woohoo! They had the PGA tournament there, Brian, and they were doing trivia on Philadelphia with the golfers. And they said, is there a jail in the bottom of the Memorial Stadium? And the golfer said no, and there is a jail for Philadelphia fans to get carried away. Right?
That was the old Veterans Stadium, yes.
Yeah. Past the SAE, great. Love it. Taking the 7th, June 1st. Love it. Mid-70s, low 80s. Looks like everything's in flight, right? Now all you got to do is stick the landing. I love it. Tips on where to spend my time last 2 weeks. Well, as we said, 2 weeks out. 2 weeks is like 14 days, but you should be buttoning up the reading and watching the videos and doing the practice quizzes and transitioning into doing practice tests. Now, as I told you, Ryan, I'll do a little plug for my friend Brian. I like with 14 days out, this is where I would typically tell you to buy Brian's Test Geek course and spend the next 4 days watching his videos and going through his PDFs. That'll pay. I don't know, Brian, how long does it take to watch all your videos? A couple days?
Series 7, those are the longest ones, of course.
You think 2 days, 3 days?
Probably a good 3, at least 3
Okay,
days.
so now you're 10 days out, and that's I think that's what I usually recommend. And now you're in the point where now you can start doing practice tests. And you should be doing no more than 1 practice test a day, 7 to 10 days out, just to identify areas for remediation. I see Brian's got his board going there, and I'll turn it over to you, Brian, just a sec. And no more than 1 a day, and you should spend as much time on remediation as actually doing the exam. So that would be my tips to you, but it looks like you're in flight and things are going well. Your thoughts on this one, Brian?
Absolutely. And this applies to every exam, no matter what exam you're taking. Okay. As Dean said, 10 days, 12 days before your test date, you have to take that inventory, practice finals. Zach, looks like Ryan, looks like you've already done that. You've done a couple of practice finals. Now, here's the important part. You must understand, everybody out there, if you don't remediate your weak areas, just taking practice finals over and over and over again doesn't mean you're going to be correcting the same errors, right? You've got to remediate. Dean and I both believe you have to spend as much time remediating as you do with the practice finals. So use your performance tracker, whichever one you have, right? Isolate the weak areas and then ramp up on those weak areas with Dean's videos or my videos or whomever's, right? And then might take a short quiz on that area, right? That way we're focusing on the weakest areas. a chain is only as strong as its weakest links. So we got to strengthen those. Once you've done that, you just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
I love that. Ryan, this is the other reason I like our live streams and our test-taking tribe. Remember, Cole, we were saying to Cole that we think what they're calling reinforcement at Past Perfect is this process. I think he called it reinforcement. We call it remediation.
Exactly.
We thought Cole was successful in his remediation efforts because he had in there our commentary had told us his scores and we could see the improvement, right? So without doing the remediation, Brian, how many times we have people, I'm stuck getting a 60, a 60, a 60, or a 70, 77, 70.
Making the same
We say, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to do another one tomorrow. I say, no. You got to remediate. You got to lay some more base. You got to do the work. However, that being said, I like where you're at. So again, we like this post. This is a good post. We think you're where you need to be. You know what I forgot to do for our victorious test takers? I forgot to ring the bell. I was so excited to smoke my cigar and get my Johnny Walker. What are the 3 most important rules? I'll say 2. We had a president, and his name was Roosevelt. And all of his legislation was called the New Deal. That's a hint that the old deal kind of sucked. The old deal was trust me, you'll love it. President Roosevelt said, you guys in the securities industry, I know are taking exception to these legislation 33 and 34. He said, but you'll thank me later because this will promote confidence in your industry because people have lost that confidence. So 33 is the Prospectus or Paper Act. So, you might want to cover up the screen. Are they asking about paper, prospectuses? It's 33. Are they asking about people in places? 34. Now, that isn't rules. Those are acts. Those are things you can go to jail for, making a fraudulent distribution of securities to the public. FINRA has rules, and you should definitely not be missing questions about rules because those are aim and shoot, point and click recognition questions. For example, the gift or gratuity rule. You should definitely know that's $300, right? The maximum gift or gratuity somebody can give to another. FINRA 2210, you should know about IPO withholding. But very rarely, Brian, let's see what Brian thinks. I'm going to turn over to Brian. I don't think people feel the 7 because of rules. Do you?
No.
I mean, if you tell me you fail because of rules, I'm going to, I don't think so. The main focus, I would prefer you would have asked this question. What are the 3 most important topics on the Series 7?
Exactly.
Ooh, munis, mutual funds, and options.
Yeah.
That of the 91 questions on investment vehicles, about 60 plus or minus are options, municipal bonds, and mutual funds. So I think that would have been a better thing to tell you. So I answered the question you didn't ask.
Do you recall years and years ago, since we've been around since the horse and buggy days, there was a textbook provider who used to publish a little pamphlet, and it had all the FINRA
rules of the road. Rules of the road. I think it was called.
No. I mean, it was like Rule 1710, Rule 2210.
Yeah,
and anytime somebody came into my class, I'd go, get rid of that thing. You don't have to memorize rule numbers for crying out.
Yeah. I just started studying for the 7 after past 65. Woo! No, you should not. Margin is 3 or 4 questions. It's pretty linear. Yeah. The title of my lecture on margin is Don't Overdose. Right? I used to make people learn everything. And I had a guy who said, God, man, you turned me into a margin clerk. And it wasn't a payoff. I should have spent that time elsewhere. Options, munis, mutual funds. Yeah. So the answer is no. You documentation, you need to know minimum maintenance. The problem is we don't know what 3 or 4 questions you're going to get. But if you just guessed B on every margin question, you told me you missed the mark on your test, I'm going to say, nah, you had other problems elsewhere. Your thoughts on margin, Brian?
Absolutely. Yeah. Since the test changed in 2018, there's been no more than 3 or 4 margin questions on the Series 7. And it's not heavy duty at all.
Yeah, I'm not going to miss you. Using Kaplan for a couple months. I read the book. Oh, I love that Louisville. Oh, warms my heart. You read the book. Thank God. Detailed notes. Now, I get a little worried about this because some people never get the book read because they're too busy rewriting the book. So I listen now. Louisville. You're gonna probably go off on me, and rightfully so. I like to do the highlighting and detailed notes on the second read. Oh, did Dean just say you should read the big book twice? That's exactly what I said. Because the first time you're reading the book, you don't really know how it's connected. You're just trying to get the lay of the land. And so, again, it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. Well, when I'm studying for something, I like to read the book first in as close to one setting without trying to understand anything, just see what's between the covers. On the second reading is when I highlight, I take notes and do stuff that. Watching videos and notes. All chapter 85. Love it. Louisville. Chapter tests. Am I doing something wrong? No, not at all. We wish every student would do this. I don't see any red flags here. I don't see a practice test score, and I don't know when you're testing. I now that I say that, I only have one potential red flag. But hey, it's a champagne red flag, champagne problem. Boy, if everybody had this problem, it would be okay. I am concerned that the 85%, it's hard to do. If that's a true 85, I'm okay. But that's an 85 because you have gone through the Kaplan Q Bank, the 3,600 questions or whatever, 3 or 4 times. You're getting 85 because you go B, B, D, C, A, B, B. That's a problem. But other than that, I don't see any red flags. Brian, you see any red flags here?
No, but it's time to take a practice final. Let's take inventory. All that hard work you've just done. Let's see if it pays off.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Intellectual inventory time, my friend.
Now it's this problem.
Right? Yeah, I'm studying for the 66 since April 1st, so May, okay. Even before I get to my firm, doesn't that require, well, they're not called licenses, Dead Craft Play. It's called registrations. Does it require registration to study for your exam? The answer is no. Right? So maybe they want you to be registered. That 66 does not require registration. I see this happening a lot, Brian. It hurts my heart. I don't know if they're making you get the 66 on your own before you take the 7. It isn't the ideal situation. I have some people in my 66 class who are struggling because they didn't take a 7. Right. It's not required. It's a co-requisite, but it would be better if they already had done a 7 and had some base.
Yes.
So maybe that's your firm, and that could be the problem. Well, listen, it looks like we have some people losing motivation. What was the other one? Should I continue on? Well, I'm glad you come to see us tonight. The answer is yes. You got to continue on. You got to keep working, right? If you're poor and you deserve to be rich, you got to get into the securities industry. And you can't get into the securities industry if you don't pass your exams. I want to take the exam soon. I want you to do it too before you lose more motivation. Should you keep rereading and finals and scoring low somehow? Well, we would like to quantify low. Is it a low 60? Because that's a huge better score than a low 50, right? So low scores reflect sometimes not doing the work in terms of laying base. Before you're doing quizzes, how many people we have to do this, Brian? Don't jump into practice tests until you've laid the base. And people get a terrible practice test score, and I'll say, like less than 60. I go, well, have you read the book? No. Have you watched any videos? No. Have you done any chapter quizzes? No. My guy who's been in business 50 years told me just to do the practice tests over and over and over again. We still have some of those dinosaurs out there, but boy, that certainly is going to work. So based on this post, first, I'm glad you joined us. Join us every Tuesday. Join us for our coaching call. You have my invitation, but stay plugged in, stay motivated, and get some practice tests done so we can see whether you can take this exam soon, because Brian and I want you to take it too, but we want you to take it when you're prepared. Brian, remember last week we had somebody said they were studying for 6 months for the 6. We go, what? You can't stay motivated. You're going to run out of fuel. You got to land the plane. Right? So, all right. So Deadcraft, Brian, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I don't know. There's no practice finals, but let's remediate. There's the process.
Tomorrow, woohoo! So Reese, we're make sure you get some sleep tonight. We'll be sending you good test vibes. Good test vibes. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. 100% pass rate. I'm ringing the bell in advance of your testing victory tomorrow.
There you go. That's
right. Be the 66 tomorrow. Let it come to you.
And Dean, if I may be honest, his test is tomorrow and he's asking us if we're ready, we're not going to say no.
Yeah. Well, he's got an 80. He's got an
I know, exactly. Well, the 80s are going to
this
support all that anyway.
gender preference, but
no,
yeah,
don't take it tomorrow.
I would say be confident in yourself, be confident in the execution of your study plan. Most important, Reese, tomorrow, be confident.
80s are great scores.
Yeah, don't be sucked up. 80 is great, right? So we have every expectation, particularly because you've already been in the cave. You got a good look at the dragon. You know what the 66 dragon looks like.
That's right.
So you're going to go back into the cave, and now you're going to slay that dragon, right? We don't need more people. There you go.
Just to let you know, Washington has done the same thing. Jeff Bezos left for Miami 3 months ago because of
wow. Well, there you go, right? People like that are mobile. We have the resources to leave, right? I left California. And all my friends who continue to bitch about California, I said, well, do the Dean thing, exit stage left, right? How many people in Nevada, Brian, do you meet that are Californians, escapees from whatever? Taking this up next Friday, the 29th. I'm scheduled for a Kaplan 3-day. Love it, Zachary. Is there a gap between? I'm not. Is that supposed to be gap between review dates and exam? I mean, it's okay. I mean, it depends what you're using the class for, right? So I have people who are joining me tomorrow for the third day of our 66 cram course, and I'm not worried if they're testing Thursday or Friday, depending on where their practice test scores are, how they're doing. But I guess what I would recommend. I recommend if you're doing a cram course to do it the first of the week, right? So my ideal time would be Monday, Tuesday next week for people to take the test.
Right.
So I do recommend a gap. I don't think it's necessary. The gap I recommend is not too long from. I joke, Brian. I know how you feel about this, like your videos, right? Your version of a class. I feel, Zachary, that when you come to my 3-day class, cram course for the 7th. I got to put that on the calendar. I forget to tell people when I'm doing them. But anyways, I think by osmosis, I'm going to have you close, if not passing, right? And so I don't want that to dissipate. So a lot of this stuff is minutia. And so I would want you to be testing Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, so that, you get the payoff from that osmosis of us together. So I do recommend a gap. But I've had many people who are joining me, and with class ends Wednesday, they're testing Thursday, Friday. I don't have any problem with that. But again, we'd like data, right? I usually say, well, what are you getting on practice tests? Does it sound like Dean is speaking some foreign language? You say, no, I'm pretty cool with this. I said, great. So, Brian, your thought about a gap between cram?
Yeah, I always, if you recall, when we first started doing Series 7 classes, they were 5 days.
Yeah, I do.
So there always had to be a gap, at least the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Well, now that they're now down to 3 days or 3.5 or whatever they are, because of only 125 questions, you still need a day or 2 or 3 a gap so we can practice a practice.
The other thing, Zachary, too, is like today. I don't know if I have any of my students joining me today, but the other thing is we're going to run you hard. And the other thing is I always tell people on Wednesday night, please don't do a practice test because you're going to go down in flames. Take a good morning to rest. And then the first thing I want you to do is a practice test when you're refreshed and reset, maybe Thursday, for example. Right. And that's the problem with not having that gap. We might wear you out, and then you're trying to cram at the last minute and you get more worn out. And that could be a challenge. So that's the other reason I would prefer there's a gap. Yep. So, a day or two, just kind of gather yourself and, exactly. Keep your rhythm, review your notes, that kind of thing. Right. This happened last night. I'm an NBA fan, right? Rust versus rest, right? So is it a good thing that you had 9 days off and you're going to play a team that just came off a grueling 7-game playoff series? It sometimes happens either way. The team that's rested and has the gap does well. Sometimes they're not in a rhythm, right? It just depends. Any topics that sneak up on test takers on the 6th? I don't think it's sneak up, but I would tell you to review retail communications, review customer accounts, spend some time on variable annuities. I don't think those should sneak up on you, but they're there. So I don't think there's a 6 sneak up things. I mean, 6 is, we kind of know what's there and you just got to be prepared for it, right? Brian, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's only 50 questions on it, right?
Yes.
So it's all about the different types of investment companies. And Dean is absolutely right. Nailed it. It's retail communications, right? Variable annuities. Make sure you're good with that. right? And the different types of client accounts. That's it.
Yeah.
Other than the core of the mutual funds.
But Brian and I, Jake, say that this is why we want you to overlearn the SIE. There's two advantages of overlearning the SIE and not coming out of there wobbly. One is if you're going on to a 7, it helps you lay a good base. If you're going on the 6, I almost think you could pass a 6 with the work you did on your SIE, depending on how much work you did. And again, that's another reason why I don't want you waiting too long, because you lose that advantage. If you wait too long from your SIE to roll into the 6 or roll into the 7, then you sometimes lose the freshness you have of the work you did on your SIE. You lose those, what I call them, dividends. I'm just taking my 66 for the third time Friday. Woohoo! I'm taking off tomorrow. I like it. Been scoring mid-70s. Love it. Multiple testing platforms. I love it, Chris. That doesn't sound like you're monogamous. No reason to be monogamous when it comes to study resources. I've been studying since December. That's a little worrisome. That's a long time to be out in the wilderness, So, any advice going into Friday? Well, I like that you're taking tomorrow off. I think at this point, you need some rest. You just want to go in there with your reading skills in top form. I know when I'm tired, my reading skills are not in top form. So I would want you to get some rest, maybe even tomorrow night, because as much as we tell you get rest on Thursday night, you might be too stressed. Oh, I got to rest. I can't rest. I got to rest. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. So maybe tomorrow night before the night before, start thinking about kind of powering down and get some rest. So that's my advice. I don't think you're going to be in any better position trying to cram between now and Friday. So it's mainly keeping your rhythm and getting some rest. Brian, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah. The December thing kind of concerns me, as we just kind of mentioned, taking 5 months to study any of these things. I'm not a big fan of taking the entire day off, because again, you're going to lose that rhythm. I wouldn't be working 8 hours a day, no doubt. I mean, if you want to take a light day, but you got to stay in rhythm. Review some notes for an hour and call it good. But I don't want to take a day off.
Rhythm is, important.
That's just me.
I told you I'm a basketball fan, Chris, and last night, I just think Shea, well, they were playing good defense on Shea, but, he just didn't get his rhythm going. I mean, he's out of rhythm. And, boy, Wemby was a killer. Taking my 65, starting with Sharpe ratio. Well, there's nothing to worry about that in terms of the Sharpe ratio. It's a pretty easy kind of question answer on the actual exam, Gabriel. First, Brian would tell you we aren't interested in turning you into a CFA to pass a 65. So we sometimes get CFA types who take exception to the way Brian and I teach things. So here we go. Brian and I have been told by an investor that he's going to give each of us $10 million to manage over the next 12 months. And he says whoever has the higher return wins and gets the rest of his portfolio, which is $80 million. And so Brian is foolish enough to send me his portfolio that he has been managing for the guy in this beauty contest. And it looks like a tie. We go to talk to the guy. He said, well, I'm kind of in a quandary. It looks like, Brian, you have the same return. I go, no, I'm the winner. And he says, what do you mean you're the winner? I said, I have a higher Sharpe ratio. I got the same return as Brian, but with less per unit of risk. That is the test question. That a higher Sharpe ratio is good because it means we're maximizing our return, our unit of return per unit of risk. Brian, do you think it's that simple?
That's it. It's certainly not a mathematical question. Sharpe ratio has never been a mathematical question.
A lot of them aren't. Even the next one is not. So here we go with your next one, Gabriel. Right. Brian is not only a test geek. Brian is also a math geek. And so, if I needed to do some math, I would say, hey, Brian, could you do this math for me? I say, Brian, I'm considering buying a bond. It's a 6.5% bond. That's the coupon. It has 10 years to maturity. Brian, I know that 6.5% means I'm going to receive $65 in annual interest. I'm going to pay twice. I get that I'm going to get 20 payments of $32.50. And I realize, Brian, that 3250 10 years from today certainly isn't worth as much as 3250 6 months from today. I get that concept of time value of money. What I'd like to do, Brian, is tell me the present value of $1,000 from 10 years from today and the present value of these 20 payments of 3250. Brian calls me. He said, Dean, I did the DCF, the valuation technique test question. DCF is a valuation technique. He says, Dean, the present value is 920. He says, Dean, what's the price of the bond? Now, because it's a valuation technique, I said, Brian, I can get the bond for 900. I can pay 900 for a present value of 920. I have a net present value of $20. Net just means difference. That's a good value. That's the test question about discounted cash flow. It's a valuation technique to discover present value. And then we use that present value to decide whether it's a good deal. He said, well, Dean, what's the price of the bond? I said, well, you told me present value is 920. Damn, the bond is 940. Why do I want to pay 20 over net present value? Net means difference. That's $20, not in my favor. That bond is overvalued. Brian says, what's the price of the bond? I go, damn, Brian, unbelievable. 920. It's the same as the present value. Who would have thunk it? There's no net present value. It's efficiently priced. It's efficiently priced. That would be the yield to maturity, by the way, in terms of that. So that's discounted cash flow. Test question, Gabriel. You can apply that valuation technique. By the way, you got another valuation technique question. You can apply that technique to stock as well, right? So I call Brian. I say, hey, Brian, Math Geek, listen, I got this stock that pays a dividend. I understand, Brian, the dividend I'm getting 3 months from today is worth more than the dividend I'm getting 10 years from today. I understand that. What I want to know is what is the present value of these future dividends I'm going to get? And then Brian says, well, Dean, are you concerning buying a preferred stock or common stock? I said, well, does it matter? He said, yeah, it does, Dean. If this is a preferred stock, I'm going to only be able to use dividend discount model. That's discounted cash flow applied to a stock where the dividend is constant, doesn't change. Now, if you want to be conservative, Dean, I could also use that for the common stock as well. It will result in a lower valuation and give you a bigger margin of safety in terms of the analysis. I said, well, it's a common stock, Brian. It's Bank of America, and Bank of America used to have a 15-cent dividend every quarter. Now it's 18 cents, and it was 21 cents. They just raised it again to 24 cents. So what is the present value of a Bank of America stock applying the dividend growth model? That would result, test question, in a higher valuation. Right, so he calls me, he says, Dean, the present value using the dividend discount model or dividend growth model of Bank of America is 50. And then I say, I can get it for 40. Good deal. 60. I think of the big fundamentalist Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett loves using this valuation technique. In his latest 13F, he's lightened up on his Bank of America position. And Gabriel, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Buffett did his DCF and said, okay, now there's no deal here in terms of that dividend. Let me lighten up on that. And your last one as well is a valuation technique. JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citigroup are all money center banks. And what I'm about to address is not whether Jane Fraser at Citibank is better or worse than Jamie Dimon or Brian Moynihan or whoever. But if I'm a value investor, I'm using fundamental analysis to come up with a margin of safety in terms of valuation. And at one point, when I first was adding Citibank to my portfolio, the price to book was 60 cents on the dollar. Means I could buy the Citibank stock for $60 and its book value is $100. Woo! Right? JP Morgan trades at 1.2 times book. So the thesis here would be, well, Jane Fraser should be able to fix the problems at Citigroup and get the price to book back to what her peer group is, which is more like 1, right? Right now it's 80 cents. So she's been improving the price to book, 80 cents, 90 cents, and that's what we would use it. I'm not going to, again, Brian's point, I'm not going to make you do it on the test. I'm going to ask you to recognize it as, again, a valuation technique. All right. Well, I think that actually is sufficient for all those questions on the test. You don't need to read that book anymore on these topics. You don't need to do the practice questions on these topics. Dean and the test geek and the math geek have answered those questions for you. I'm being facetious, kind of. What do you think, Brian? Anything you would add to that?
No, there's not going to be a lot of these on the 65.
It is a rabbit hole, don't you think?
It's definitely a rabbit hole, especially because of the way the textbooks describe it.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man. Reading that textbook, and if you're not a CFA, if you're not a finance major, man, it feels like I'm chasing my tail. It really does.
Like I say, Gabriel, we should warn you that I know you're surprised. I didn't know, Brian, I even had haters until I got on social media. I'm probably sure I had them. I just didn't know we were out there.
Exactly.
And I would tell you, Gabriel, that people do sometimes take exception to Brian and I's method of passing tests. But listen, we've been doing it for decades, and we've helped tens of thousands of test takers. And the people who usually take exception to the way we lay things out are living in an ivory tower. They've helped like 10 people pass a test. So, for what it's worth. All right, onward and upward. It's so exasperating, right? I mean, one question.
Don't change answers.
Oh, man. Brian and I say your first answer is your best answer. If you want to model good test taking behavior, watch these game shows. And if you're watching like Jeopardy and it's, what's the guy's name? The guy who's now the host, Ken, whatever.
Ken something. Yeah.
He's answering and boom, 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 right? If you're watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the guy who's going to win is not the guy who's going to phone a friend at like question 2, right? You got to trust your judgment. Brian, this came up today again. Jennifer, I don't know if you're out there, but if you're joining us tonight, Jennifer, this is the second day of class, and she put into my chat options with a question mark. I said, Jennifer, it's day 2. This is the first time somebody has done this faux pas. Moving forward, I only answer questions that have exclamation points. In the future, I want to put options with an exclamation point. I will know it's really a question mark. But you don't want to be questioning yourself. And I told them the entire class, every time, let's pay attention this next day. Every class I've ever taught, Brian, where I've said that, never once has the exclamation point been wrong. What would have been the question mark? They have the right answer, but they're just not trusting themselves. So I am not a big believer in changing an answer unless you got it wrong. I still wouldn't change it. And you definitely know what the right answer is. Very rarely will you meet both those parameters. You got it wrong and you know what the right answer is. Should you switch up your studying? I don't think so. I mean, the reason that I don't know if you're sponsored for your 65, it's not necessary. But most firms know that when you miss it by 1 point, it's not that you didn't put in the work. They know that you put in the work, you laid the base for whatever reason, bad draw, changing answers, you didn't make it. So I don't think you should second guess yourself. Now, you might want to get another vendor just to get different questions or something like that. But I'm not worried about you passing the second time. Your thoughts on this one, Brian?
Yeah, and we see this a lot, Dean. We see people miss it by 1, 2, 3 questions all the time. Oftentimes, and Dean just mentioned this, it's not always a case that you don't know the concepts. It's because of your test taking, right? You can't be changing answers. You can't be, interjecting things into the test question that aren't there. Also, one last thing, right? Because you missed it by 1 doesn't mean necessarily it was that one question you changed.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
If we could still strengthen some of those core contents, then that one question you changed wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, we want to have margin of safety. You don't want to be hanging on changing one question.
Exactly.
If you check the video description, you will find a video I made called You Failed, Is It Over? Spoiler alert, the answer is no. And in there, I have 5 recommendations about how to respond to that misfortune. The first is, while the hurt is fresh, Brian's point, while that hurt is fresh, I want you to do an intellectual debrief with yourself to see if there's other areas, hopefully a honey hole somewhere. A lot of target-rich questions that we weren't really good at, that had we been better at, could have dragged us across that finish line. So that's that first recommendation. I'll leave you to watch the video on the other 5. But yeah, Brian, I'm with you. You get, and then remember, you want to get yourself a margin of safety. You don't want to go down there and miss it again, right? So, but I don't think this. If you got below, like for example, got below 60, I'd say, well, let's pretend it never happened and let's start over. But you went in the dragon. You almost got him. It wasn't a drive-by. I mean, you got to look at him. He still got you, but you got your jab in there. So you'll go get him. It's 4 weeks, absolutely, absolutely. The well foodie, I like it. The well foodie, absolutely. Using Kaplan, absolutely. You're welcome. Tamisha, hey, I should have known that was you. Tamisha is one of my students. Absolutely, 4 weeks.
If I may just interject 1 second, the well foodie. I don't know if I told you this. My Stacy is in Paris for 10 days.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I wasn't invited. So we're getting all these Instagram feeds on all of this Parisian food. And
I don't think that's wellness food, though. Well, it's like French food has a lot of.
She's the foodie, and I guess by default, so am I. So,
it's funny. Well, foodie Tamisha, I love everything about France except France. I love French food. I love French wine. So it's kind of weird in that. But I always joke, Brian, if you give something a fancy French name, you could charge more for it.
That's
You're not going to get much for snails with butter, but escargot and burr, now we're talking. I have a chef friend, and I said, hey, Spencer, what's the difference between a casserole and a cassoulet? Because he had a cassoulet on the menu. So it's about $10. so I'm hoping Stacy. When's Stacy coming back?
Friday.
Are you in Vegas still? You're going to be in Vegas next week?
I am. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to come see you next week at some point. So with Stacy's welcome. I won't plan my trip to avoid Stacy coming home because I want to hear all the good things that she experienced. How long did she go for?
10 days.
Wow, you can see a lot of France in 10 days.
Yeah. They're going to Reims tomorrow for champagne.
Oh man, beautiful. Hey Dean, just passed my test. Wasn't easy, but I grinded through it. Joshua, I love that post. Brian, in social media, I had to delete a couple posts. I'm pretty transparent about it. But boy, the whole point of our communities in Facebook and Reddit is to be uplifting and help people pass tests. And oh my God, some of these people are so negative. I mean, this guy wrote like a paragraph about how Kaplan sucks and Past Perfect sucks and Nauman Mark sucks and the whole world sucks and this test is the hardest thing I ever did. And I thought, well, okay, well, why do you think the community would want to hear that? So Josh, that's the perfect thing. Somebody at your firm asked you about the exam. Don't scare other test takers. Just say it was a significant challenge, not easy, grinded through it. I love that, Joshua. That's one of my favorite posts. That's the appropriate response, right?
That's exactly right.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You got good chi, Tamisha. By the way, I hope it doesn't, I'm not a new age person, but I do think there is a certain amount of karma sometimes. And Tamisha, we were just talking about social media, Joshua. I didn't say a word because I knew that this would be misinterpreted. But she was so negative in social media. I didn't delete her post because I thought, she's an active community member, and so I'm not going to delete her post. But I was tempted to say, ooh, there's something to be said for a positive mental attitude. Yeah. And you don't have it. And I worry about you because you got to kind of flip your brain and go, man, I love this test. I'm so happy I'm taking this test. And she missed her mark. And part of me wants to say, no surprise, all that negative energy, man. They're sending out those negative vibes. 66 on Thursday, complete the hat trick. Love it. Love it. All looks good. Any tips for last day? No, just keep your rhythm. As we said, kind of a shoot around day. Just go take some shots at the basket. Just, I'm joking, but review your notes, maybe do a practice quiz. It's all about rhythm and rest at that point. Yeah. Because, as Brian was teasing, there's not really much you can do the night before. How many times, Brian, do we get people who, they book a tutoring or something, they're testing them. I go, what do you think? I don't do magic. There's nothing that really is going to, like we can do. You got to go with what you got at this point, right? So I love it. It looks good. We got a lot of people that are looking good. Fancy meeting you here. And class today was great. All right. Well, we have Tamisha, we have Sue. Hey, thanks, ladies, for joining us on our Tuesday live stream. I appreciate it. Yeah, we have a good class going on. Brian, don't you hate this? Brian will be sympathetic. He's a former Kaplan guy decades ago, and he hates slides. He hates them with a passion. He loves his whiteboard. But they came up with this 13th edition, Brian, of the slides. And, I don't teach for Kaplan that often. So I go to their data. It's called their data room or resource center or whatever. I grab the deck, and, they've changed the slides around a little bit. Where's this slide? I mean, so I called Esposito. I go, listen, I don't see a balance sheet in here. We're just telling people there's no balance sheet questions. Are they going to do it on their own? And so I went and grabbed a balance sheet, question, and we went through a balance sheet. But boy, I'll tell you, it's always challenging. But we have a good group. I always say that I'm not going to teach for Kaplan anymore. Brian gets frustrated with me saying two things: that I'm a retired stockbroker because he doesn't believe I'm retired. The other thing he gets upset with is when I start talking about how I'm not teaching any more Kaplan classes. And then I always come around, I go, oh, well, I had a good group. Let's do it again, right? One practice 60. I like that, Zachary. For your first practice test score, we could certainly live with that.
So remediate, right?
65 Thursday, 75. That's right where we want you to do. Day in the Chill Guy's World. I love that. That's a great thing.
Good.
I love your picture, too. You look like a guy in a day in the Chill Guy's World. That's pretty cool. Ooh. Yeah, I don't like that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm with you. What's your opinion? I think I would just get right back on that horse and do it again because that's a huge variance.
So what's the difference between the simulated exam and the practice exam? Shouldn't be that
vendors. There shouldn't be that kind of variance. Simulated as Kaplan, it's where it's randomly picking.
Yeah. Well, I know that. Yeah.
Practice exam. Yeah, I'd be interested in more information. I'm with you. It's a conundrum about that variance. You shouldn't have a 20-point variance in the score. By the way, that if you're taking a 65 or 66, Dean is giving you kind of a hint at this concept of standard deviation. Now, one thing I like about Brian's practice tests, and maybe we should do this. Brian's practice tests have a very small standard deviation. They have very strong correlation to the exam. I don't know if this is just your second practice test, but I want you to do another one. Why don't you go take Brian's on either my channel or Brian will sell you his PDF and his answer key. I think it's like $20. Is it still 20 something dollars, Brian?
Yeah.
Just send him an email, brian@testgeekexamprep.com, and do that one and see if we get confirmation or non-confirmation. In other words, what I mean by that is, do we get a confirmation on Brian, you get 55, or we get confirmation you got a 75, and maybe that will help us. But I would want you to do another one and just, maybe it's a statistical anomaly. Let's hope, right? Your thoughts on this one, Brian?
I will swear to the heavens, I am going to be on my holy mount until the last breath in my body is gone. Performance tracker. Stick with the simulated exams. I don't know where this practice exam thing comes from, but stick with the simulated exams. Run the performance tracker. I don't know why Kaplan and everybody else on the planet isn't saying it's not about the number of practice exam or simulated exams you're doing. It's about the quality. Make sure you remediate your 75. That's the most important number. I think it's more representative of what you know rather than this.
I'm with you. But we definitely want a data point. I had a guy who same situation. It seems like maybe it's your second data point, but we need more data because we need to know whether to assign that. Like say, oh, I don't know, you had a bad day, you got a bad draw, who knows? And I've had that happen actually. Day in the Chill Guy's World. I had a guy and he called me. Now this wasn't like his first practice. He's sailing, smooth sailing. I go, man, what the hell happened? And then he told me, well, I did it when I got home from work. And I go, well, let's get this out of our system, man. Tomorrow morning, let's do another one. And it came right back up. So that's what we kind of want to find out. So we got to do some work. Two things I like, Brian, stay focused on figuring out what's going on. But I would want you to get that out of your system. And let's see if that's, by the way, when you're testing, taking the series Thursday. Wow.
Thursday. Wow.
So we got one more day of work. So do this tomorrow morning. My email, Day of the Chill Guy's World, is dean@guruexamprep.com. Let's check in. I don't want to scare you. I think the 75 means you're going to pass Thursday.
Right.
So I'm with Brian. I think 75 is actually the score that is more where you're at than this 55 thing. And Brian's point, we don't know if that's Kaplan or Pass Perfect or STC or Achievable. That would be, if you want to share that, I'd be interested in which test prep vendor was it. Was the 7955 Kaplan? They're both Kaplan, or they both pass perfect, or is the 75 one test vendor and the 55 is another? Fourth attempt. Wow. Well, good news. I've had people on the fourth attempt pass it. One question. Oh my God. These one questions are killers. That's 86. Love it. On Teskey, even better. Wow. First time through the Teskey?
Once and only once, and you got an 86.
Yeah, because Brian and I find that hard to believe that you could get that kind of a score on his exam. But hey, if that is once and only once, as Brian says, Brian, if people get mad at me, I had a guy told me you got a 95 on your practice test.
Oh, God.
He goes, "Are you calling me a liar?" I go, "Yes, I am." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "There's no way you took that straight up and got a 95. He goes, "Well, okay. Well, I did take it 6 months ago when I was testing, and I took it 6 months before that." I go, "No." So, but hey, if that's a straight up 86, we feel very good about Friday. Yeah. Any suggestions? Just keep the rhythm. Keep the rhythm. So this is Tuesday. Do another practice test. Let's just confirm that 86 on Brian. So if you go to my channel on the 66 practice test playlist, do a STC or do a Kaplan, and let's just confirm Brian's score. Ryan's scores, though, I think are the most reliable scores. Right. So I usually tell people to take Brian's as their last intellectual inventory 2-3 days out. Right. Chicago Cubs. Ooh. Unfortunately failed. Oh, 2 points. Well, man, we're getting a lot of that today, aren't we? I panicked. Oh, man, panic is not good.
63 is tough on time.
Yeah, it's tough on time and lack of a number of performance opportunities to make it up. Yeah. So my advice, this is the only time I give this advice. I have a guy who I just gave this advice to recently. It's the only exam where I do not say you need to read the book and watch all the videos and do that stuff. What you have to do is exhaust the Q bank. And you have to exhaust the Q bank and the practice test and the time allocated. And those practice test scores should rise just the nature of doing it. And again, I do have a couple videos I would recommend. One video I would recommend is Brian's video he did for us. We did an evening class that Brian did for us called Definition of Registrations and Persons. Make sure you check that video. The other video is the Mighty 90 on the Uniform Securities Act. That's where I teach the 63 in 90 minutes. It's usually a half a day class, so it moves pretty quick. So I just gave you my advice. And boy, that's disappointing. Where to get Brian's cheat sheet? You get Brian's cheat sheet at brian@testgeekexam.com. Don't send it to me because people send it to me. How do I get it? So just send an email to Misha to brian@testgeekexamprep.com and say I would like to accept the offer of the cheat sheet. I don't like that he calls it a cheat sheet because I'm always afraid. To me, so you're going to take it down to the test and leave it on your desk accidentally or something. So, but that's what it's called. So just send Brian an email, and he'd be more than happy to send that to you. Oh, now I lost my place.
Ezra 340.
There we go. Yep. Oh, there we go. Oh, thank you, Brian. I know the material clearly. Love it. My practice and scores are in the 80s, albeit I only did 4. Oh, I don't know. 4 sounds good. I mean, I'm not sure what's coming next.
Especially in the 80s.
I'm actually teaching as I read these comments. I'm taking it bit by bit, right? I know the material clearly. You're an 80. Now as a test taker, I go, 4 exams. I'm collecting information. I take the exam in a week and a half. I don't see any problems here. State and federal rules, 25 of 33. I'm sure is there another one coming? There we go. The area killed you. I think you're in good shape, Ezra. I mean, all things considered, I'm not worried about you. You just got to keep working. So you have time for remediation. Did we miss where he's testing? I took the exam in a week and a half.
We're in the 80s.
Ezra, did you pass? I'm not sure on the grammar here. Did you pass your exam or did you miss your?
No. This is the Chicago Cubs guy. Missed it by 2 points.
Oh, okay. Got it. I got it. Okay. So what is the question? Well, I don't see a question here, but I think, Ezra, you're on to your own solution to the problem. I really think the law area killed me. Well, then that means the magic word. What is the magic word? Remediation of law and registrations, right? Now, Brian, we know that if you go to the test specifications, it will match up perfectly with that printout, right? Those 4 areas on your exam. So, Brian, what's
25 out of 33 on the laws is a 75%. I don't think it's
there you go. So not so bad. Not so bad. I hate these high scores almost passing.
I know.
It's a killer. It's a killer. But we talked about it. Well, you got to tell us, Mike, which exam, which is taxation covered. I don't know, which exam are you talking about? So I think we're not accountants, but we got to know taxation well enough that the guy's accountant doesn't say you need to know a broker. We should understand that taxation is a major impediment to investment success. And therefore, we should know, for example, what we can do to mitigate some of that, like muni bonds, for example, or tax credits on a partnership for low-income housing or for historic real estate, or making sure we don't buy an industrial development revenue bond, private activity bond for somebody subject to the AMT, knowing cash dividends are taxable, stock dividends are not. So I think the easiest way to, as a test taker, is know the tax consequences when you're studying the investment vehicle, right? What are the tax consequences of this or that as you're studying that investment vehicle? But I do have a taxation ledger you can check out, and that's called Death and Taxes. No, just taxes. So I have a video. You can put that in the channel search bar, and you can watch that video. I guess I'm going to try and, Mike, answer the question. If you tell me that you missed a mark on one of the exams because of taxation, I'm going to say I think you had bigger problems elsewhere. Would you agree with that, Brian?
Except
a big enough area to jam somebody up?
I think the 7 that can jam you up a little bit. I have a YouTube video on taxation. Of course, we don't know what exam he's taken, so
yeah,
we're just
but here's another example I'm just thinking about, Brian. Do you need to know LIFO in a variable annuity? You certainly do. Right. Do you need to know the step up in the basis for inherited securities? You certainly do. So if I now in my mind, Mike, I'm kind of going a little backwards as my own mind. I'm kind of on recall thinking, okay, how many tax questions? Maybe I'm with Brian. It could add up. It could add up. Taking the 65 investment vehicle taxes, last two 75, 79. Any help with those that are important for the test? Go get the test specifications. Matzo balls, matzo dollar, and check out the test specifications. But I think you're pretty good, right? Those test scores reflect those practice tests. You're in pretty good shape. With these, are they important for the test? Well, yes, investment vehicles are. Brian and I see this all the time, and I'm teaching a 66 class, same as 65. And I get people who sometimes don't pay attention to investment vehicles. They think they understand them, and they don't. So you, on 65, really got to know about mutual funds. Open-end versus closed-end, ETFs versus ETNs. So, yeah, that's huge. Right? I wouldn't worry too much about partnerships and some of the esoteric stuff, but definitely. How about these investment vehicles? I'm sorry, Brian, go ahead.
I'm sorry. On the 65, we know there's exactly 32 questions. Yeah. So is it important? Yes. And it's oftentimes, as Dean just mentioned, one of the lowest scoring areas if people miss their mark. So investment vehicles is very important.
Brian and I are always surprised on both 65 and 66.
That's correct.
How many people do okay on law and registrations? That's the thing they're most frightened about. But then, and they end up missing the mark because of investment vehicles. So. How math heavy is the Series 9? Not as much been as people think. It's more about sales supervision, right? So if you're really strong on option strategies, I love that. And not as good on regulations specifically. Well, then now that kind of, the question doesn't match the question doesn't match what you said next, right? You asked me how heavy is the math, and you told me you're pretty good at option strategies. That to me would mean you're pretty good at break even, max gain, max loss. I would tell you in the option strategies, it's about losses, not about gains so much, like recognizing that as a Series 9, I love spreads. I love spreads because in a credit spread, for example, I'm actually, going to be able to limit the risk to the client. versus doing a naked call or naked put, that kind of thing. So risk, and then details. You're good at that. That's great. Well, regulations, position limits are there and practical application of position limits. But I don't know. I'm going to rephrase this question. You're not as good at regulation. I'm not worried about that. I'd be really concerned if you said you're not as good on supervision.
Exactly.
And remember, because the 9 is sales supervisor, right? I joke you're going to be babysitting brokers. It's unfortunately on all these exams. You have to believe in human depravity, original sin. And you have to, as a supervisor, Ben, assume you're going to be babysitting, supervising 7s that are either malicious or ignorant. They are both supervisory challenges. I'm not sure, Brian, what the bigger supervisory challenge would be. A Series 7 that's malicious or a Series 7 that is ignorant. I mean, from the client's perspective, that they blow up doing some crazy option thing, it probably doesn't matter all that much. I think malicious, at least with a sheriff, you might be able to get your money back. But, so that's how I would answer that. But I feel good about your post in general, man. Taking my 7 on Wednesday, the 27th. Took my first simulate, got a 70 using Kaplan. I love it. How many practice should I aim to do? Well, if you're testing on Wednesday, no more than 1 a day. You're about 10 days out. So if I were your corporate trainer, Jam, I would sit down with you and say, how many do we going to do? And maybe you say, Dean, I'm going to do 6 more. I don't know. I'm okay with that. 7 more, 8 more, pick a number. No more than 1 a day. And then remember Brian's point, it's the quality. And the way I keep saying what Brian has got on the board is it's more about the remediation after the score than it is the score itself. That being said, we want to move your 70 into the mid 70s because that's where you get a margin of safety. Now, Brian and I, we would disclose there are all kinds of corporate trainers, oh my God, and test prep vendors that say you need to be in the 90s. Well, higher is better, but that's not if you're memorizing questions and answers. Brian and I are happy if you're getting a 75, you know what you're being asked, you know what answers are being offered to you, and you miss the question, oh well, part of the process. I don't know if Tamisha is here still and Sue is here, but remember this came up in class today. And I said, you got to give yourself some grace. It's not really, don't beat yourself up. It's a process. And as long as we're executing on the process that we're discussing, doing the remediation, doing the work, it will take care of itself. I mean, you're going to pass. Passing these exams, Jam, is more a function of being dedicated, disciplined, and organized than it is about brain power, right? And part of that dedication, discipline, organization is doing this process we're talking about. How many practice I go to review the weak areas? Absolutely. That's exactly what it's about. Low scores are 67, 69. Well, again, if we were betting people dead crap play, I would bet you're going to pass. But I would like as much as possible get margin of safety. I got a guy I'm working with, and he's testing on Friday. So he's testing Friday, and by the way, he didn't reach out for help until late in the process. But I told him we only have 2 days here. We got Wednesday and Thursday, so we kind of got to go with where you're at. And he's working full time, which is just a challenge.
Really is.
So we don't have much time. I said, so for us, we're going to have to go with the score that we really don't like, but I really do believe you're going to pass. I told him this. I said, but all we can do now is be confident in the execution of your study plan, be confident in yourself, and be confident in your answers on Friday. And I do think he's going to pass. I really believe he's going to pass. I had a class I did on the campus with that corporate trainer, and we had 6 people that got between 60 and 70 dead graft. And I said, I think we're going to lose 3 of the 6. And she goes, well, who are they? We'll rescue them. I said, well, again, if we knew who they were, we would rescue them. But it's statistics. I don't know which 3 it is. There's no reason for that. If they didn't get wobbly, if they continued to work, they would all pass. And they all did dead graft. All 6 of the people between 60 and 70 passed. We had 2 people who were below 60, and I said, that's almost impossible. I mean, every blue moon, sometimes that happens, but those people don't know what they're being asked. They don't know what the answers are being offered to them. They're going to have to lay more base. They're going to have to, do more practice, and who knows, they can get that done in 2 days, testing Monday. I was proud of them. They both got high 60s on the actual exam, which I thought was a valiant effort, and they circled back and they passed. So I think you're in good shape, so there's no reason to, give up the ship yet. What's that? John Paul Jones. I just begun to fight. I finished the book. I watched your videos and Ken's. Well, we don't promote Ken's content in any of my social media. Ken's content is not safe for work or for home. There's too many indiscriminate F-bombs, too many inappropriate sexual innuendos. So I'll cut you some slack, but this isn't Ken's live stream. It's Dean's live stream. You did all the chapter quizzes, progress, so all good. STC is good. Kaplan's good as well. I got a 75 on Kaplan simulated exam yesterday. Yeah, we did this one. Are we repeating ourselves?
Yeah, kind of looks that way.
Got a 65 mastery, 70. I think, Gusto, you're going to Gustavo. I love that. Gustavo. Ooh, that's a classy name. Gustavo. I like it. Is that a Spanish Gustavo? Is that a Spanish name? I like it. I was just coming back from the Premium Cigar Association meeting in New Orleans. It was so fun. All the people who make great cigars are a lot of them are Cuban who are now have third generation, sons and grandsons that are making cigars in Nicaragua and Honduras, and kind of fun to hear all the Spanish going on. I wish I could teach the 24 in Espanol. I'd be rich. Maybe it's German. I don't know. I like the name though. Sounds like a classy guy. I think you're in good shape. If you're using Kaplan, I don't know, Kaplan, I'm assuming Kaplan because mastery exam is a Kaplan term.
Yeah.
And the variance is in your favor. So I think you're going to pick up some points there.
They look good. They look strong.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good score. So I'm not worried about you.
Do you remember our friend Angelo? Of course you do.
Angelo, Angelo used to teach us, and he passed on though, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He taught Series 7 in 3 different languages.
Oh, my
English,
God.
Spanish, and Portuguese.
Oh, my goodness.
In Brazil. We go down to Sao Paulo.
I have no aptitude for foreign languages. I mean, I know people that do. What a gift. I had a girlfriend who spoke like 5 languages. I took French in college. I don't know why I would take French in college instead of Spanish. But my French teacher said, Dean, I'd like to give you an A because you try so hard, but you have no aptitude for the French language. I said, I'll tell you what, you give me the A and I promise I will never tell anybody I speak French. It was fun. I was in Paris. I got into a cab driver and I felt like looking her up. I said, you'd be proud of me. We understood each other. We were communicating effectively. Does Stacy, does she speak French?
No more than I do. And
okay,
we know 50 words in French.
I think it's always funny. Parlez-vous anglais, and then a French person will say un peu, and then they'll have a huge conversation in perfect English. I always joke them. I go, that's beaucoup anglais. That's not un peu. That's beaucoup. Gustavo, my stepmother is a Mexican national. And it's funny because I'll tell people I don't speak Spanish, and she'll give me grief. She'll go, you just had a 15-minute conversation. I go, yeah, I kind of know where I'm supposed to say sí or no, but it gets me into trouble because people think I can speak Spanish, and I'm in real trouble. Gustavo, I'm not worried about you. You didn't tell us when you're testing. I'd like to know when your test date is, but even if you were testing tomorrow with those scores, I think you're
tomorrow. He's doing tomorrow.
Does it say that?
Yes.
Oh, next one. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Presenting tomorrow. Listen, even his language is classy.
And you know what the Canadians say when they take the exam?
They're writing the exam, right?
They're writing the exam.
Yeah. Every pass the 66 onto the 7, and I am through. Woohoo! That is the normal course of affairs. It's a certain sense of melancholy because Brian and I come into your life for a reason and a season. The reason is to help you pass your exams, and the season is how long that takes. And Gavin, it looks like good news. It's the natural course of affairs that our reason and season is coming to a close. We got one more dragon to slay. It's funny, Brian, I get people who say, Dean, I passed my exams like Gavin, and I'm unsubscribing from the channel. I said, I get it. It is what it is. What's funny, every once in a while I have somebody, Dean, I passed, but I'm going to keep my subscription. I go, woohoo! But isn't it fun, Brian? Gavin, someday, who knows, our paths may cross again. And how gratifying is it, Brian, when we see somebody like Gavin who has matriculated, gone through their journey, passed their tests and registered, and then we find what they do with these registrations. in terms of taking care of their clients and taking care of themselves and their family. And, every once in a while, I'll be somewhere and somebody will send me a drink. And I go, who is this? And some student from long ago who is doing well. Yeah, certainly exists with Kaplan, Jackie. Mark Esposito is one of my other brothers from a different mother. I have two brothers from different mothers. Brian Lee, who was with us this evening, and Mark Esposito. And Mark teaches the 65 for Kaplan, so I'm sure that is going on. Also, my biggest problem so far are taxes, accounts, ERISA. I like it. Thank you for having some decorum. We try and keep it clean here on our channel. Anyways, ERISA stands for Every Ridiculous Idea Since Adam.
Oh, stop.
No, it stands for the Employment Retirement Income Security Act. I don't think ERISA, I had an insurance company, Brian, I was teaching for them. And I don't know, it's like a virus. All of a sudden, people were like going nuts over ERISA. I go, it's 2 questions. Please, don't overdose. I hate those questions. Why? I did kind of got to give some grief. I told you, you got to get rid of the stinking thinking. You got to kind of turn your brain and go, God, I love taxes. I love paying taxes for civilization. I wish I could pay more taxes.
Oh, don't say that.
I love ERISA. I love non-qualified variable annuity. So, try and flip it. Sometimes it's hard to flip it. I get it, but if you can. No worries, Deadcraft. No worries. Yeah, it's always harder. Kaplan is harder. So I've been saying that day in the Cho Guy's world that you can add the variances in your favor. That's a good thing, right?
That's right.
So any practice test, we don't give passing scores anymore. But when we did, and Kaplan could track scores, the variance was 5 to 12 points in the test taker's favor. Unfortunately, now we can't track passing scores. I should say we. It's the royal we. I'm not a Kaplan guy. Brian, how many times have we had this discussion? Day in the Chill World. Here's a warning, I guess. I had a test taker I was working with, and he was frustrated with his Kaplan scores. It's like the person earlier told us they were getting a 68, and we encouraged him to keep working. Right? Should I continue on? The answer is yes. And I told this test taker that yes, he should continue on. And instead of bitching about Kaplan, excuse my language, do the work. Well, instead of doing that, he bought a different test prep vendor and took a practice test, and he got an 85. I said, goes, aren't you happy for me? I go, no, not really, because we're not really sure if that 85 is, true or not. I said, do Brian's practice test, and let's see if Brian's practice test geek, confirms Kaplan as an intellectual inventory or confirms this test prep vendor. Brian got the same exact score on the test geek as Kaplan, and guess what he got on the actual exam?
The same exact score.
And that means, since we know that he didn't make his mark. So keep up working, but I would say 5 to 12 is that variance.
Especially the mastery. The mastery is really tough.
By the way, and it's by design because Kaplan wants you to be pleasantly surprised, right? Yeah. They don't want you to be unpleasantly surprised. We know test prep vendors who people are unpleasantly surprised. They think they're going to make the mark, and they're getting 90s on some test prep vendor, and it doesn't translate. Master exam on 66 got a 74. Oh, love it. Okay. Test on no. Don't move your exam. Go slay the dragon. Why would you do that? Ari Berry, I'm so glad that you asked this question, because why people do this, and it drives me nuts. There is no reason for you to move that date. That is a score that reflects you're going to make your mark. And when you push the exam, all you get is an artificial sense of relief instead of the real sense of relief that you're done. So please don't move that. Brian, do you concur with me on this one?
Absolutely. And again, we just said that the mastery is much tougher and is scored in your favor.
Very. Come back Tuesday.
Saturday?
Come back Tuesday and collect your victory.
And I'll bet you dollars to a bag of donuts. If she took a simulated, or whatever. If they took a simulated exam tomorrow, I'll bet you dollars to a bag of donuts, it'll be higher than that 74.
Yeah, no, it's a great score. So we want you
It
to
is.
test.
It's really good.
We want you to test. And
Doing
again,
well.
I think where this comes from, people's brain housing group, where they're used to the idea that 74 is a low C. No. It's a passing score. It's simply pass or fail. That's it. Now, Barry, you can come back Tuesday, and please note, you don't have to trust Brian and I, but please note, we haven't had any test taker who's ever come back and said, "Oh, you lied to me. I should have extended my day." So go. Benjamin, I love seeing people join us from LinkedIn. We broadcast to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Our preferred platform is YouTube. But thanks for joining us. Past the 7. Woohoo! You did the Test Geek and the Mighty 90. My Mighty 90s are very, very popular. When I started the channel, Benjamin, all kinds of people told me nobody's ever going to watch an hour-long video. And that was not true. And I said, well, I'll even prove they'll watch 90-minute videos. As long as the content is helpful, people will watch. And I'm so excited about the contributions my 60 Minutes videos have made. Somebody was talking about my friend Ken, right? And talk about a copycat. He's changed his quick and dirties to power hours. But I've had very popular videos that are 60 Minutes overviews of the test the night before. And the news version are the 90s. So love it. 66 Nicks, how much 7? Not a lot. I have some of my students here in class, and it's one of the common mistakes I think people make who miss the mark. So, Benjamin, you should have a pep in your step. You had a testing victory on your 7. You slayed that dragon. Now you come into your 66. Every exam should be respected in and of itself. And there's enough overlap where people get familiar, and then they don't put the time in. And we've talked about this, Benjamin, how many people miss investment vehicles. Right? Because they go, oh, yeah, I remember this from my 7, but it's a little different. There's things like duration and discounted cash flow, or more balance sheet stuff that I did this morning in my class. So I wouldn't count on the overlap. I would prefer you to pretend that there is none. That's not true, but it's a testing fiction I think would serve you well, to just pretend that there's nothing on the 7 that it's going to translate to your 66. Your thoughts on this one, Brian?
Absolutely. Benjamin, and anyone else who's just starting the 66, you start with nothing else except the Geek and the Guru Series 66 podcast, where you get an overview, and we'll tell you exactly what is familiar, what isn't familiar. Be careful. Here's the traps.
Yeah. Is that our 65 or 66, Brian, where we talk about who takes it or why? Is that the 65 podcast?
That's the 65. Okay. Yeah.
But ours podcast, watch the podcast first, because we do give you a nice overview of that. So that shit, I think I got it linked in the video description, Benjamin. But I think that's always a place to start. And I always get people, Benjamin, to say, where should I start? I say, how about the playlist that says start here? Oh, another LinkedIn user. How exciting. You two owe me pass. Ooh, looks like we got. Wow, 2 months.
2 months?
Impressive. Wow. Very impressive. Very impressive.
By the way, folks, that's not usual.
Yeah. Daily in the Chill Guys world, I certainly hope so. There you go.
Awesome, actually.
What's the difference between written approval and written notice? Well, written notice means I tell Gabrielle, your firm, that you're opening an account with me. Approval means the firm says internally they require written approval. They have to acknowledge that you can have the account. Are REITs real estate mortgages? No. Just real estate mortgage? No. You buy a REIT for the same reason you buy a mutual fund. A REIT provides you with professional management, diversification, and ease of ownership. Same as a mutual fund. But instead of being a portfolio of securities, a REIT is a portfolio of professionally managed real estate investments. So how do you make money in real estate? Well, you just brought up, we might have a REIT that owns mortgages. We might have a REIT that owns properties and collects rent and lease payments. We might have a REIT that buys and sells. We refer to a hybrid REIT that does all of that stuff. The REITs are either going to be offered publicly. A lot of REITs like Boston Properties, for example, trade on exchange. Some REITs are offered privately under Reg D, only for accredited investors, and they have limited liquidity. So REITs don't pass through losses like mutual funds. They must pass through at least 90% of their net investment income. I don't know what exam you're taking, but I would expect that on an SIE, a 7, a 65, you could expect a question or two about a REIT and how it's like a mutual fund and how it's different and how it's like a partnership and it's different. The biggest difference between a real estate partnership is that there's a flow through of both income and losses, right? So back to your written notice. Written notice is I tell Kaplan, I'm going to be doing a Tuesday night live and I'm inviting Kaplan students. That's written notice. Written approval would be say, Dean, if you are a Guru Exam Prep is teaching a class for Kaplan and you invite, Suzanne or Tamisha to that thing, you need our approval to do so. So that written approval is a more stringent rule. You're welcome. Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Looks like we're almost done. We ran over tonight, but that's okay. Benjamin, man, we have so many good-looking men and women in terms of not their looks themselves, but just their smiles. So spirit-filled, so spirit-filled. I just took them past the 7. You know what I'm going to do?
This is duplicate from the.
Okay, well, there we go. Well, if I don't answer your question, it means I'm behind. So maybe you get impatient, you put it in again.
That's what
Brian, of course, you mentioned the phrase, the admin can hold the registration of an agent for 30 days if the BD is revoked. My Kaplan correct answer said agent must cancel their registration. Well, it looks like it's aimed at you, Brian. I don't think either of these are test issues, but
it's for Series 66, it might not be. It's a typical question for the 63. If the broker dealer's registration is revoked, then all the agents are not automatically revoked either, right? The administrator puts them in a suspended pile until the agent can get reaffiliated.
Yeah, let's see if you agree with me on this one. Yeah. So, Jared, I think the test issue here is, and I'll defer to Brian, is there's no way for you to have an effective registration if the BD does not.
That's right.
That's the test issue, right? So I haven't had anybody ever tell me they got this on the real test, a question about 30 days or is there a hold. The point is your registration is not effective. Usually it gets tested something like this. Brian, this has probably happened in your career as well, where, Brian is one of my reps and he says, hey, Dean, I have a client who moved to Montana. And, I know our broker dealer is not registered in Montana, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and register as an agent in Montana. I said, well, Brian, you must have missed this on your 63, 65, or 66, because there's no way for you to be an agent registered in Montana if the broker dealer is not. Now, we would have 30 days, that I have seen as a test question, to get registered in the security if the guy moved from Washington to Montana, to get the broker dealer registered, get the agent registered. So that is the way I think it would show up, is the idea that you can't have an effective registration as an agent if the broker dealer does not, for whatever circumstance.
If you can, screenshot and email me the question.
There you go, Jared. Thanks, Brian. I don't, we, as I said, we have like haters, and sometimes they're saying things, and instead of, just calling us, they, or having the student call us, they're telling them all kinds of crazy things. So,
because I was interested.
Tomorrow, you need advice. Get a good night's rest. Yeah, I'm sorry, Brian.
I'm sorry. I said I'm as interested in the test concept as they are.
So. Well, I would also tell you one more thing, Jared. The guy that is the Brian equivalent at Kaplan is a guy named Chuck Lowenstein. And Chuck, oh my goodness, he's got a lot of what I call gotcha questions in a good way. He's trying to stretch your mind and hope it doesn't go back to the same spot. But I sometimes, Jared, will call my friend Chuck and go, "Are you serious? Do you really think this is a test issue?" Get some rest. Last minute advice. You're done. You're done. Get some rest. Get a good night's rest.
Night-night.
We want your reading skills on top form. Practice art. Yeah, we answered that one. I guess people are impatient with me getting through these things. Seriously, I think I did that one. Get some rest. The food industry is way too political. Oh my goodness. I guess I shouldn't say that in this forum because it might get me in trouble. But I spent most of my career in San Francisco. And Tamisha, we used to do, oh my goodness, Flaw Friday. Flaw Friday. And it became an issue in San Francisco about, are these geese who were, plumping up, living a tortured life or not? I mean, anyways, my brother was a vegan. We have some, like terrorists. I think sometimes a PETA is people who eat tasty animals. But anyways, we would have our Flaw Friday there. So Yeah, it takes away from the fun. It does become a little woke sometimes in the food industry, particularly in certain cities. Regarding options, what the heck is that avatar? Is that a big ass cigar? I like cigars. That looks like it might be a huge cigar. Maybe it's a tree. Regarding options, protected puts and covered calls. Is there a way to distinguish or help recognize when these are used and why? Absolutely. A protected
Absolutely.
put is insurance on the stock position. So if you want to have a choice to sell, it's like insurance. You don't buy insurance because you plan on wrecking. You buy insurance just in case, right? So I call you up and I say, hey, Brian, it's been a pretty good ride. I mean, we bought this stock at 90. It's now at 180, and we can buy a 175 put extremely cheap. Why don't we pay 4 points for the protection? We're out $90 for the stock. We're out 4 points for the protection. We're out 94. Anytime between now and expiration, we can stick it to somebody, sell it. Our choice is on 90 at 175. We have a guaranteed profit. So that's what a protective put is about. It's about insurance on a stock position. We're not buying the put to speculate on the price going down. We're buying the put to protect the stock position. A covered call test question is used to generate additional income.
Right.
I say, hey, Brian, we can buy Apple at $298 today, and we can sell a 310 call for $9. Somebody will give us $900, Brian, to agree to sell at 310 stock we just bought at 298. We can generate additional income. We can supplement the dividend income on Apple. There are 3 sources of profit here. 298 to 310, 12 points there. The premium we received on the option and the dividend income. We also get some price decline protection because we're going to lower out-of-pocket cost on the Apple from 298 less the premium, right? What I think I said 9, so that would be our price decline protection. But you don't do a covered call for price decline protection. You do it to generate generate additional income, suitability. So he told us they're taking a Series 9. Again, suitability. Why do you buy a protected put? To have, test question, the ability to participate in a big price increase, but not participate in a big price decline. How cool is that? That's a pretty cool thing to be able to do, right? So there you go. Both Kaplan. All right. Love it. One practice exam you purchased separately. The simulator was separately. Well, do me a favor, Day in the Chill guy. I mean, Brian doesn't like, I shouldn't say Brian doesn't like. I don't know. But Brian will sell his PDFs a la carte. And so if you're going to buy a practice exam and you don't want to watch my video or buy Brian's video course, I think he charges, I want to say a little over $20. Now, be clear. Every once in a while, somebody doesn't understand this. All I got was a practice test. And I said, I'm very clear. That's what you're going to get. And I want to say, Brian, do you know offhand what your price is? 20 something, I think, for a practice test.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
with the Guru 20 discount, it's even less than that.
Now, there you go. So what I would say, if you're thinking of buying a practice test, I think it would be worthwhile to just go, buy Brian's PDF if his practice exam for any exam. The other thing I like to do, not only use it to confirm scores, the other thing I like to do, Brian, is I like them to use that the night before in the morning of, just to read your questions and answers, just to kind of get in the flow, so to speak.
That's right.
So I tell them to like El Marco the wrong answers and just to read the questions, the right answers, and his explanations. And, it's a good way to warm up. So simulators always purchased separately. I don't know how to respond to that. I don't think Kaplan sells simulated exams separately. But if you're thinking about buying a practice exam, Brian only has one. I keep wanting him to write a Q bank, but he ain't going to do it. So he only has one. So use it wisely. Most important chapters for the SIE, it's the same thing: characteristics and risks of investment vehicles.
Yeah.
You're taking a test called the Securities Industry Essential Exam. What's essential to the securities industry? Securities, right? So you want to know stocks and bonds and all that kind of stuff. Can you discuss the difference between a general partner? I certainly can. General partners have unlimited risk and LLCs do not. I don't know, Barry, what test you're taking, but on 65 and 66, There's a question about a husband and wife who own a family business as a general partnership. And they have the flow through of the income and losses. And the question says, why would they consider dissolving the partnership and reforming as an LLC? And the answer is because in an LLC, there's limited liability. I am the managing member of Guru Exam Prep LLC. This is not Guru Exam Prep LP partnership, right? And that's the major difference. The difference is both have the flow through. The difference is liability. Limited partnership is a limited partner. I'm just providing money to the business. As a limited partner, I'm just providing money, and it's limited because my liability is limited to my investment, right? So I was a limited partner in a winery. That means I just put up the money. I was a limited partner in a brasserie, right? That just means I'm providing the money. I'm not managing the asset. And if somebody asks you, do you want to be a GP or an LP? You'd want to say LP, right? Because LPs have limited liability. I tell the story a lot about the Warriors. That's a partnership. The general partner is a guy named Joe Lacob. And we were talking. He didn't invite me to be a limited partner thing, But, 20 people were partners in buying the Warriors. 2 of them are general partners. 18 of them are limited partners. So if I tell you I'm a limited partner in the Warriors, it means I just put up the money. I'm not actually renewing Steve Kerr's contract or, re-signing Steph. That's the GP that's doing it. The cheat sheet is not good. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. NASA, if you're listening, please pay attention. Right on. Email for the street sheet. Brian, there you go. Brian at testgeekexamprep.com. And now I lost my place again.
Every time you put a banner up.
Yeah, I do. There's a way to make it not do that. I think I can star it. I should learn how to do it because we do this enough, Brian, where it's kind of aggravating, I'm sure, for everybody. Oh, there we go. There we go. Boom. I wanted to be math heavy. Well, it's not. I can't tell. I had been a guy. I hit the Zoom link for his tutoring session. As I told you, I charge $425 an hour. And the guy said, Dean, I am not paying you $425 an hour to do math with me. He says, I'm a math geek. You give me 2 numbers. I can solve for the third. I don't need to memorize formulas. I don't need any of that. So here's what I want to do in the tutoring session. Like, hey, wonderful. You did an opening purchase. You're along the tutoring session. Your choice. I took an opening sale. I'm short the tutoring session. So, hey, it's your dime. We'll do whatever you want. Anyways, he passed. But what he told me, Ben, is that he regrets having a little bit of hubris. He still passed. He goes, but Dean, most of the time, the math I was counting on was not actually doing it. It was just recognition of the input and the output. And to be honest with you, I was able to figure it out because I could reverse engineer it in my mind. But I wish I would have just made a couple of flashcards or, some formulas just so I could just, put B and move on rather than doing that. So, yeah, Brian, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just need to add one thing to that, especially for the 65 and to the 66. Yeah. And you know this as well. You need to know the inputs and outputs. Yeah. However, what sometimes gets people who are not good with math is those formulas are written out in sentence form, not in formula form. Yeah. And it's hard for people to recognize it. Boy, I've been saying this for 15 years. It's in sentence form, so you got to be careful of that.
I would make one more comment about math. There are people who love math. Brian, there you go. There are people who hate math. Statistically, we are the best test takers. Brian is a guy who thinks that 2 + 2 always equaling 4 is exciting. I think that's boring. I like to talk about things like what is beauty. Yeah, we drink a little scotch, we smoke a cigar, we get closer. We don't know what it is. That drives sometimes math people nuts. The people who are statistically the worst test takers are people who are apathetic about math. Those are the people who struggle because, even people who hate math, we can get over it, right? Because again, it's Brian's point, right? I just told you, Brian, we were doing a live stream. I don't know if you were on that live stream. And I was saying, listen, in my career, sometimes I had to do math that was important. And what's important, I would pay somebody to do it. And this guy said, you shouldn't even be in the business if you can't do your own math. I said, oh my God. I said, there's so many people in our business who don't do math or choose not to do math who do well. And there's all kinds of people who can do math and do well as well. I think both of them are, because statistically, I just don't know the result of that. But it's usually because both people are good critical thinkers.
Exactly.
That's right. You know, I can look at a math question. I do what I call, Ben, my own kind of term for this, dead reckoning. I kind of look at the math question and go, is there a way for Dean to avoid the math? If you're still here, Tamisha and Suzanne, remember today we were going over the tips thing? I said, listen, I'm not going to actually do the compounding thing. I'm just going to say, okay, inflation's 8%. That's $80. It's 2 years. That's 160. So the number is somewhere close to 160. 1,160. I'm picking that number. Right? So, by the way, so I guess I would say math, no surprise, people who love it want to be math heavy because we're never going to trick them. I joke like break evens and options, right? Dean is never going to miss a question on break even and options. I would like 125 of those, please. Right. You're not going to get it, right? Should I phrase it, but I'm good with option math? Well, good news. I mean, it's testable, but you're not going to live or die by math as in terms of making your mark or missing your mark. Mystic Steve, oh man, Jackie, we've got this so much tonight. Struggles scored low 20s. I think 20s on that section, I hope.
20 out of 32, I think.
There you go. Right. Take a 65 June 2nd, lots of time. SDC pass, Pastor Kaplan, love it. Not sure what to do, prepare 2 weeks. And what we've been saying over and over and over and over again, remediation, right? And again, Brian's point, quality versus quantity. Dan, the Chill Guys World, you emailed me. I forgot what I told you to email about, but I'll check email. I have a 763.6. I feel Jeremy like saying every 6 class by why don't you get a 7? You're going to need it eventually. And thanks for joining us from LinkedIn. Do you suggest taking the 65 or 66? I would take the 66 because it's 100 questions instead of 130. And it doesn't have the economics. But I call plan B a 65. For some reason, you struggle with 66, well, then take the 65. That's it. Yeah, I think, let's see what Brian, well, here you go, Jeremy, right? Maybe Brian's going to say something different. So you got to be careful how many voices you have in your head. But Brian,
this is an age-old question.
It is.
I wrote a blog on this thing 15 years ago.
Is it still available? Where's it at?
Yeah, it's on my website. I think
okay. Go to the website. Check it out.
It's old. TestGeekExamPrep.com. Yeah. But again, you line up 100 people against a brick wall and ask them this question, you're going to get 87 different answers. There's no doubt about it. I tell people exactly what Dean does. For Series 7 guys, start with the 66. Hey, you got the 65 in the bullpen if you need a reliever. I'm a baseball guy. Dean's a basketball guy. Okay? So start with the 66. They're both a challenging exam. They're both not easy.
Yeah.
But for Series 7 folks, I'd go 66 first.
Jeremy, Brian is right. I'm not a baseball guy, but I still use this. I have a guy I'm working with right now. I call him at-bats. How many at-bats do you have? And he's testing Friday. It's his 3rd time. This is huge. Because if he misses it, it's a 6-month wait. So, Brian, I told him, out of your bullpen thing, I said, you really have 4 at-bats. He goes, what do you mean I have 4 at-bats? I said, well, you already have a 63. So if we miss this mark Friday, and I'm working with you well enough, I've had this happen many times, so I would encourage you early next week to go take a 65. You know, I have a guy named Vince I did this with, and it's a plan B. Brian and I think agree this is a 65 is the plan B. Another at bat. It's in the bullpen. And I said, and we can then take a 65 right out of the gate. So, you know, that would be a plan B. I call it plan B because it shouldn't be, I think, the first choice. And then I have people, Jeremy, too, that are telling people without the 63 that they think they should take a 63, 65, which is asinine. Because the whole point of the 66 that FINRA created is because people were upset they were taking a 63, 65. They were trying to make it easier for people. So why would you go backwards on that? So I really say plan B. Equations, I think 3 or 4 math questions. Pretty basic, total performance, current yield, or I should say total return. Next week, we'll send any good test fobs. Welcome from LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Georgia. Are you the same Georgia in my class today? I think I have a Georgia in class, and Brian, the rule is don't unmute while we're lecturing. You can unmute at breaks. And I kept teasing her. I said, Georgia, you know, you're not following the rules. You're not supposed to unmute until it's time to unmute. You know? Custom quizzes. Georgia, I would say that the reason I'm a big fan of the Kaplan Q Bank, one of the major reasons, and why I think it's the best Q Bank in test prep vendor world, is the way you can manipulate it. It's easier to manipulate the Kaplan Q Bank to create custom quizzes, to do remediation. So I'm totally with you. I had somebody, and recently they made some changes in Kaplan Q Bank, Brian, and it's just layout. And oh my God, it's social media fire. Yeah. Kaplan's changed their Q Bank. I go, listen, you should be worried about the content of the Q Bank, not what it looks like when you pull it up, right? Remember subcategories. Could I do a quick review? Well, go to I have lots of videos on munis, but here's what I would recommend for you. Take a sheet of paper, fold it in half, and on one side, write all the terms associated with GOs. On the other, all the terms associated with revenue bonds. For the most part, all the subcategories you're referring to are in the revenue bond category. Right? In the revenue bond category, we have, for example, industrial development agency bonds, IDAs, IDRs. So most of that is over in that part of it. Now, if you're taking a Series 7, I wouldn't even qualify this as subcategories, and here's why. People think there's a zillion types of muni bonds, and that's simply not true. There's only two, GOs and revenues. Now, within that category, there might be different types of revenue bonds or different types of GO bonds, but that's the test issue. Is it a GO? Does it require voter approval? Is it supported by taxes? Is it a revenue bond? No voter approval, supported by user fees. That's the main one. Then special tax bonds, for example, you know, that kind of thing. I have lots of videos. Put that in the channel search bar. It'll certainly come up. We have lots and lots of content on munis for you. 3 times. Oof. The wording FINRA uses, well, the wording I think is problematic. You got to translate from FINRA to NASAA into plain English, and that can be a challenge. What else do I need to do? I don't know. There's not enough information here. It's exasperating. Brian and I believe that when you get a 70% 3 times or 2 times, that it's not the knowledge, it's not the FINRA rules or wording. It's testing technique. I don't know. Is that the right word? Would you call it testing technique or testing anxiety? What would you call it?
I just call it test taking. Yeah.
Test taking skills, right? So I would suggest that, Berga, what we need to do is work on your test taking skills.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe join us. You have my invitation. This is a free office hour for actually people who are spending money. But if you would like to, you have my permission to go to deantenneytutoringsetmore.com. Join me for a free office hour. And in that office hour, you know, remind me that we talked about test taking technique. And maybe we could talk about there. There's a video I made called Tips, Tricks, and Memory Aids. And I do go over in that video, Tips, Tricks, and Memory Aids, test taking tips. You know, Brian, do you take heat? I sometimes take heat for teaching test taking skills instead of just teaching content in the exams. And when I get called out on that, I go, there's a certain placebo effect. And if people even believe they're better test takers, which I think they can have better test taking skills. That also promotes confidence, which I think promotes passing scores. Right. What's your thoughts on test taking?
Well, again, before every single class, I go through some test taking and I incorporate it throughout every one of my classes. And, you know, and of course I reduce them all to cliches, right? Keep it simple, stay with what you know, don't, you know, that kind of stuff.
Me too.
But, you made a point. You made a point, you know, a few minutes ago about nonlinear thinkers, non-math, and linear thinkers, math. And it is a big difference in the way in which they take tests, no doubt. I am very linear, especially with tests. I was always the second or third person finished. In college, when we were taking exams, I was always the second or third person finished, right? Always passed them because I'm very linear. A plus B equals C. Boom. But I know if you're nonlinear, that can also, and that's one of the things I assess when we start talking about test taking. If you are nonlinear, here's a couple of things that you can do, right?
Yeah.
How to read the question, how to read the answer choices,
Yeah.
keep it simple, all that stuff. Yeah.
Love it.
It's a big part of it.
Amazing we get along so well, you being linear and me being nonlinear.
Exactly. Stacy's the same way.
Oh, is she? Well, there you go.
Math, right?
You're two significant others.
That's correct. Exactly.
How many hours of study do you recommend? I say 60 to 80 hours, Brian. What do you think? 60?
I don't put a number on it. It's different for everybody. I say 4 to 6 weeks.
I like that. That's a good answer. That's a better answer than my answer. Yeah. I would say this. I think getting a test date 6 to 8 weeks out and then reverse engineering is the way.
That's exactly right. That's where you start. Yeah.
I passed the SIE 50 hours. Wow. But just now jumping back to the 7 for my first job. Well, welcome to our industry, and that's wonderful. I think you got that first testing victory. I always joke the journey of 3-0 begins with 1-0, right?
Yes, it does.
Pat, wow, look at that. Woohoo, Enrique. I'm going to have to get myself a different like Spanish name.
I know.
Right? Gustavo, Enrique. Yeah, that's so much classier than Dane. Say it like, all thanks to you. Well, thank you so much. Woo! Woo! Is there any way to understand registration by filing coordination? Absolutely. Brian's an expert at this, so I'll give him my first shot. First thing is filing isn't registration. You don't tell me that the way we register a mutual fund is by filing. No. A mutual fund is a federally covered security under the National Security Market Improvement Act. And so mutual funds don't have to register through either coordination or registration or coordination or qualification. They simply make notice as a courtesy to the state administrator, hey, we're going to sell the Wisconsin State Tax-Free Fund in Wisconsin. Coordination would be for the SpaceX IPO. So coordination is when we're doing a traditional registration statement. SpaceX has made a registration statement saying that they're going to sell brand new securities to the public. So now they're in the cooling off period or quiet time. The underwriter is Morgan Stanley or the lead underwriter. And so at the same time we're going through the SEC process, we're going to coordinate with any state we plan on selling SpaceX in. So if we're doing an SEC registration, that's when we use coordination. Qualification is if I'm not doing an SEC registration. For example, maybe I'm doing an interstate offering of securities. I'm doing a Rule 147 offering. And the SEC says to me, Dean, did you sell brand new securities to the public without making a registration statement? I say I did. I availed myself of an exempt transaction, a safe harbor under 33, Rule 147. So now I'm going to have to ask the state, what do I need to do to qualify to sell this in your state? So qualification is primarily an interstate offering. The famous one, Chris, that everybody uses for the illustration of interstate is Ben and Jerry's. Like when Ben and Jerry's raised money, they only raised it in Vermont from residents of Vermont. So they didn't have to register that security with the under 33, but they certainly had to qualify with the state administrator of Vermont. The one I use is one of my favorite deals I did was Del Taco. Restaurant properties, interstate offering. I have to qualify. Brian, I love your board. I'm sorry I didn't give you your whole board.
No, that's okay. I'm just going with what you're saying.
That is an overview of what I just said, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. So remember, the textbooks don't line this out very well. There's really only two methods of registering securities in the state. That's coordination and qualification. That's it. Those are the only two methods.
Yeah.
The third thing called notice filing, as Dean has already mentioned, is for federally covered securities. Now there's a list of 3 of them. Securities are already listed on exchange or on NASDAQ or mutual funds, investment companies. They don't have to register, but they have to pay filing fees through this process known as notice filing. That's it. And on the 65, you might get 1.
Yeah, people get in the weeds on this.
Maybe 2 questions.
So, Chris, the other thing I would add to that, and Brian, this is true as well. People really do get in the weeds, and that's the only 2 ways to register the security, right? Yeah. And so notice filing, again, the National Securities Market Improvement Act, NASAA, Chris, state administrator hated it because it took power away from them.
Yeah.
It took power away in terms of investment advisories firms. It created 2 buckets, federally covered advisors and federally covered securities. And so as a SOP, I'm joking, but we said, how about if they still pay you some money? Okay. So,
Exactly. That's right.
Enrique. Oh, we're legends. Oh, well, thank you so much. What are the difference between double-barreled and moral obligation? So if you break into my home and I tell you I have a double-barreled shotgun, I'm telling you that if I miss you with the first shot, I'm going to get you with the second shot. So maybe I work in public finance. Corporate finance are men and women who raise money for municipalities. Or excuse me, corporate finance are men and women who raise money for corporations. Public finance are men and women who raise money for municipalities. And maybe Salt Lake City wants to host the Olympics. And as an investment banker, I say to Salt Lake, I say, listen, for every host city of the Olympics that it's been a financial success, I can show you another city where it's been a financial disaster. And if I try and go out and sell these bonds as a revenue bond, the user fees from the Olympics, you're going to have to pay a higher interest rate. And I don't know what it's going to look like. Why don't we take a vote of the residents of Salt Lake and see if they'd be willing to say that if the revenues from the Olympics are insufficient, it will be paid by the taxpayers of the city of Salt Lake. If you bought these bonds, it would say Salt Lake City Olympic Organizing Committee revenue bonds, comma, a general obligation of the city of Salt Lake. Now, good news, there was a surplus. There was money left over at the Olympics, so the taxpayers didn't have to make good. Ryan on his board, once again, is doing a beautiful work in telling us that that's a GO bond that requires voter approval. Okay, I lived in a little mountain town called Mariposa, California. And we had a little rural hospital called the John C. Fremont Hospital. And, the hospital needed to raise some money to modernize and expand. And so the John C. Fremont Hospital went to the state of California's legislature and said, can we issue some moral obligation bonds? And the state legislature said yes. If you buy these bonds, it says John C. Fremont Hospital Revenue District bonds, comma, a moral obligation of the state of California. Not a general obligation, a moral obligation. Now, rural hospitals really have a hard time financing themselves, and it's very likely these bonds could default. Because to be honest with you, in my little mountain town of Mariposa, most people actually go down to the flatlands and go to a big city hospital with big city technology. If the bonds default, the legislature is going to take a vote. They're going to say all in favor of paying back the Mariposa, the John C. Fremont Hospital bonds say yay. More opposed say nay. If there's more yays than nays, they'll sequester the money out of the general budget of California to pay back the bonds. So, who knows? You may or may not get paid back. Surprisingly, they have a very good track record because as a legislator, I'd say, listen, you see those guys in the back of the room from Fitch's and Moody's and Standard & Poor's? They're here to see how California does on its moral obligation. And if we as a state do not do legislative apportionment to pay back these bonds, they're going to ding our credit quality. And it's going to cost us way more than just to pay back the bonds. Brian's whiteboard is perfect. The test question is that a moral obligation bond is a revenue bond and a double-barrel bond is a general obligation bond. By the way, that's sufficient for test purposes.
Exactly.
We've done some work today, Brian. I think we've done some videos here, some things where you don't need to read the book. You don't need to watch a video. Just join us on Tuesdays. Maybe, Brian, maybe someday we'll get somebody who shows up on a Tuesday and says, no, all I did to pass my exam was hang out with Brian and Dean on Tuesday nights.
No.
I passed the 63. Woo! Ooh, this looks like this is our last one. And give me time, Brian, to go get the wheel of the fortune. Love from Utah. I love Utah. I love my Mormon friends. Right, I was teaching a class on the corporate campus in Utah. And they said, Dean, there are no bad cats here on this campus. I go, what are the bad cats? They say, Dean, the bad cats are caffeine, alcohol, and tobacco. I said, oh, man, I am still not a good prospect. I start every morning with two of the bad cats. I start with a morning cup of coffee, a morning cigar. I end most evenings with a little alcohol and another cigar. Not going to work for me. Huge out to Mr. Brian Lee. Brian is, I think, the master distiller, particularly on NASAA exams. On 63, 65, 66, Brian is so good at turning that legalese into plain English. And so I'm not surprised. And yeah, it's a great investment. I mean, if you have the resources, how often, Brian? Well, he's on video.
They're online. They're videos.
So video, it's all video courses, but they're great. So that means 24/7 Brian is teaching classes. Can you see when people are watching your videos, Brian?
Yes. I not when they're watching so much. Oh. I could, but
that'd be kind of weird, wouldn't it? Like if you see somebody
there's too many. There's just too many people.
That'd be fun.
No point in it.
What are you doing? It's 1 a.m. Go to sleep.
Yeah, I know.
Taking the test, set Friday, all chapters passed perfect. The average score is 82. You're fine. All good. Seems sufficient to warrant as many options. Well, I don't know. Why try and give yourself bad energy?
37
Sorry, no worries, Enrique. No worries. And look at that too. Enrique knows how to tie a tie. How many men do not know how to tie a tie properly? Look at the knot of that tie. Perfect. All right, it is time.
Let's do it.
The Wheel of Fortune. So, Brian, give me just a sec to get the Wheel of Fortune set up. Choose a live stream. And I think, Brian, tonight, how about, make sure I spell it right before you put it in there. I think our word for tonight should be remediation.
Oh, my goodness.
Don't you think? Now, let's see, Brian, if I spelled this correctly before you put it on the whiteboard. So let's see. Go get my share screen. Share screen.
I like it. As a matter of fact, we should use that every week.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, what happened now? There we go. There's my giveaway tool.
You good?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see what happens. Can you guys see that?
Oh, good. There you go. Yeah.
All right, let's get rid of Enrique there. And let's get rid of or add to the banner that tells you to collect your coaching call. You need to reach out to me at boom to find your thing. There we go. All right, so if you'd like to participate in the coaching call, you put remediation in the chat exactly as you see it on the board. And we'll go ahead and spin the wheel, and we'll see who wins the coaching call. Maybe nobody wants a coaching call. That could be okay. I mean, I don't mind not having to spend time with people. There we go. Did I spell that right, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, by the way, you got to make sure it's the exact. If I had misspelled it, you need to put it the way you see it, right? Let's see. I got that version going. Remediation. All right, we got looks like 4 people there. Is that it?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 7, 8.
Well, we're showing them. Listen, I apologize. We don't usually go for 2 hours plus, but tonight we did. And so, who knows, Brian? Maybe we lost some people like an hour and 45 in. They're probably saying, I'm out. Is that it? We still got things coming in. What are we still at? 6 or 8?
I think we're up to 12.
12? Okay, so are we ready to spin the wheel, or should we give them a couple minutes more? Jackie, it doesn't matter how many times you put it in. It's only going to pick one out of there.
Oh, look at you.
You can put that in a dozen times, and the Wheel of Fortune will not pick up on the other ones. Unfortunately, I'm not. I don't know, Georgia, what that means. Unfortunately, I'm not one day. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
In your class?
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. I know, Brian, don't you know this? I have a strong personality. I'll put it that way. And so the person I tease in class is never the one who throws me on the bus in the evaluation. It's always somebody, like I told you, I was pretty harsh with Georgia, she's not following the rules and this and that. And I always tease, it's not Georgia who's going to, give me that evaluation. It's going to be somebody, you're picking on her.
Yeah.
All right. We're still getting new people?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's see. Now I got to remember how to spin the wheel.
The test geek's getting hungry.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Is it spinning?
Yep.
All right. Cool. All right. Woo. All right, Jeff. So, Jeff, you go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com, go to the class tab. You'll see coaching call. You hit that button, it'll send you a Zoom link, and then we will talk about whatever you'd like to talk about in your coaching call. So I guess that's it for tonight, Brian. Remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And you say, Brian,
you got to learn to keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time. Bye-bye.